The 1970s served up some of the wildest food America's ever seen. We're talking frog legs at dinner parties, tuna suspended in lime Jell-O, and soda made for people on a diet who still wanted sugar. Some of these dishes were beloved. Others? Borderline crimes against taste. But one thing's for sure, they left a mark. Today we're counting down 10 forgotten foods from the 70s that disappeared from our tables, but not from our memories.
Frog legs, frog legs, frog legs are fine. Hoppers is the place you should dine.
Number 1, frog legs. Yes, people in the 1970s were casually eating frog legs for dinner. Not in France, not on vacation, right here in American kitchens. Deep fried, sautéed, or slathered in garlic butter, frog legs were considered fancy. Even if you bought them at the bait shop, they tasted like chicken, looked like something from biology class, and cost just a couple bucks a pound. Supermarkets stocked them fresh. Party hosts served them next to shrimp cocktail. And somehow no one thought twice about it. So what happened? Eating amphibians lost its charm. Conservation groups raised red flags. And slowly, Americans started to ask a simple question: are we really eating frogs? By the 1980s, frog legs had hopped off most menus. Today, you might still spot them in old-school Southern diners or French bistros, but it's rare. Back in the 70s, though, they weren't weird. They were dinner. Number 2, Tuna Jello Pie. It sounds like a prank, but in the 1970s, Tuna Jello Pie was proudly served at real dinner tables. Imagine this: canned tuna, chopped olives, diced celery, and mayo, all suspended in lemon gelatin, poured into a pie crust, and sometimes topped with a sprig of parsley, for elegance. Magazine ads called it sophisticated. Cookbooks promised it would wow guests, and somehow it did. Back then, gelatin molds were the height of domestic flair, and savory versions like this were surprisingly popular. It was cheap, easy, and strange enough to be memorable. People didn't laugh at it. They complimented it. That's what makes it so hard to believe today. By the 1980s, Jell-O salads melted out of fashion. Tuna pies became something you showed your friends for shock value. But in its time, it was a serious dish, served with pride and maybe a side of confusion. Number 3, Perfection Salad, Aspic salad. With a name like Perfection Salad, you'd expect something fancy. But in the 1970s, that meant shredded cabbage, carrots, olives, and pimentos, all trapped in a mold of clear, unflavored gelatin. Sometimes vinegar was added for zing, other times, mayonnaise. Lots of it. This wobbly side dish was all the rage at luncheons, bridal showers, and church potlucks. It looked like art, tasted like, well, salad and Jell-O. But in the eyes of home entertainers, it was the peak of presentation. Why the obsession? Gelatin molds were a canvas for creativity, and companies like Knox promoted savory aspics as a modern alternative to boring vegetables. Eventually, though, taste caught up with logic. Perfection salad quietly disappeared from tables, replaced by food people actually wanted to eat. Today, it's more of a museum piece than a menu item. But once upon a time, if your salad didn't jiggle, it just wasn't perfect.
My mom makes great sandwiches. This one's deviled ham.
Number 4, deviled ham spread. If you opened a pantry in the 1970s, odds are you'd find a tiny can of deviled ham wrapped in bright white paper with a smiling devil on the front. Inside, a pinkish paste made from ground ham, spices, and just enough mystery to keep you guessing. It was salty, tangy, and packed with enough punch to liven up a cracker, or a sandwich if you were bold. For busy families and budget-conscious cooks, deviled ham was a miracle. No cooking, no cleanup, just pop and spread. It wasn't gourmet, but it was everywhere. School lunches, TV trays, even cocktail parties. Paired with pickles or served on toast points, it somehow passed for classy. Over time, people moved on to fresher, less questionable spreads. But deviled ham hasn't vanished completely. You can still find it in stores today. waiting patiently on the shelf, just like it did 50 years ago. Number 5, Rumaki. Rumaki was one of those dishes that made guests say, "Wait, what am I eating?" It looked like an ordinary party snack, but one bite in, and surprise, it was chicken liver and water chestnut wrapped in bacon, skewered and broiled until crispy. Rumaki was born from a wave of tiki culture that swept through post-war America. By the 1970s, it was a staple at cocktail parties, offering just enough exotic flair to feel sophisticated, and just weird enough to start conversations. The contrast was the key: creamy liver, crunchy chestnut, smoky bacon. Paired with toothpicks and a fancy tray, Rumaki felt like a world traveler's appetizer, even if you made it in your suburban kitchen. Eventually, food trends shifted. Chicken liver lost its appeal, and Rumaki quietly disappeared from the rotation. But for a while, it was the star of the hors d'oeuvres table, bold, bite-sized, and unforgettable. Number 6, Harvey Wallbanger cake. Only in the 1970s could a cocktail become a cake, and not just any cake, but a full-blown party centerpiece. The Harvey Wallbanger cake took its name from the bright orange cocktail made with vodka, orange juice, and Galliano liqueur. Home bakers added those same ingredients, yes, real booze, into boxed yellow cake mix and glaze. The result? A super moist, citrusy cake with a hint of vanilla herbal mystery. It was boozy, it was bold, and it was baked into bundt pans across America. Even folks who didn't drink were serving it at brunches and potlucks. It was just classy enough to get away with. But as cocktail culture faded and new dessert trends took over, the Harvey Wallbanger cake slipped into the shadows. Still, for those who remember, one bite brings back bell-bottoms, shag carpet, and maybe a tiny buzz. Number 7, Tab Cola. Before Diet Coke, there was Tab, the original sugar-free soda that promised taste without guilt. Launched by Coca-Cola in the 1960s, Tab hit its peak in the 1970s, becoming the drink of choice for calorie-conscious Americans, especially women. It came in a sleek pink can, tasted vaguely like cola with a chemical twist, and was sweetened with saccharin, an artificial ingredient that later raised health concerns. But back then, no one seemed to mind. Tab wasn't just a drink, it was a lifestyle. Ads told you to be a shape he can't forget. And for a while, millions listened. Eventually, Diet Coke stole the spotlight. By 2020, Coca-Cola quietly discontinued Tab for good. But for a generation, that metallic-tasting, bubble-pink soda was more than a beverage. It was a badge of cool. Number 8, Watergate Salad. Despite the name, this dessert had nothing to do with politics, except that both were a little messy. Watergate Salad was a fluffy, mint green mix of pistachio pudding, canned pineapple, mini marshmallows, and whipped topping. Sweet, tangy, and strangely refreshing, it became a potluck favorite in the 1970s. Why? Because it was cheap, easy, and came together in minutes with ingredients from the pantry. No one knew exactly who invented it, but the name stuck, possibly as a wink to the scandal of the era. Either way, the salad became iconic. Today, it still shows up at church picnics and grandma's house, but it's more of a nostalgic oddity than a dessert staple. Still, for those who remember, one spoonful brings back Tupperware bowls, backyard cookouts, and simpler times. Number 9, Chicken Kiev. In the 1970s, serving chicken Kiev meant you were aiming to impress. A crispy, golden-breaded chicken breast, hiding a surprise inside. A molten center of herb garlic butter that gushed out with the first cut. It looked fancy, sounded foreign, and felt just upscale enough for dinner parties or anniversary dinners at home. Some folks bought it frozen, others made it from scratch, which was a badge of pride. But as microwave meals took over and food trends shifted, chicken Kiev slowly lost its shine. It wasn't quick, and it wasn't modern. Today, you'll rarely find it on menus. But for those who remember, it's still the definition of old-school elegance. Crunchy on the outside, rich and buttery within. Number 10, Fondue Bourguignonne. Nothing said we're having guests over in the 1970s quite like fondue. And Fondue Bourguignonne was the showstopper. Bite-sized cubes of raw beef cooked at the table in a bubbling pot of hot oil. Each guest got a long fork, a steady hand, and access to a spread of dipping sauces that ranged from zesty to questionable. It was dinner and entertainment rolled into one. Fondue wasn't just a meal, it was an event. People gathered around the pot, shared stories, and hoped they didn't drop their meat. Eventually, the trend cooled off. Literally, hot oil on the dinner table gave way to faster, cleaner options. But for a moment in the 70s, nothing felt more stylish than crowding around a fondue pot, fork in hand, ready to cook your own bite of high-class fun. The 1970s gave us some unforgettable flavors. Some we miss, others we might need a little courage to try again. But each dish tells a story, not just of what we ate, but how we lived. Which one brought back memories for you? Or maybe left you scratching your head? Let us know in the comments, and if you're hungry for more retro bites, don't worry, we've only just begun.